What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome, welcome. Today we're going to take you through a nice build with the Khepri's Horn. Got some changes inside of episode Heresy here, so it is definitely better than it was before, giving us 3 of those solar waves that send out, doing a bunch of damage, scorch, ignition, stuff like that. So we're going to play heavily into that, spreading scorch, ignitions, creating as many fire sprites, taking out everything that we can with this build. So we got ourselves Solar Rampart. Solar Final Blows recharge our barricade. While you have a Solar Super equipped, our barricade unleashes Solar Wave of energy that damages and scorches targets. Combatants damaged and guardians defeated by this also envelop themselves in sunspots, so we can get restoration with this, as well as a bunch of energy regeneration for our abilities. Inside of the Sunbreaker build, for me, I'm going to be using Hammer of Soul as my super with Roaring Flames and Soul Invictus. I could go with Consecration, but since it got nerfed, I was really looking for that Soul Invictus so we could have even more sunspots going on. They apply Scorch and deal damage to targets inside, plus we're going to get restoration, like I said, so we get healing, and then our abilities are going to do more damage. Ignitions have also increased damage, so super nice, stacks up to ×3. So all of our ignitions that we're going to get from our wave on our helmet is also going to get that damage increase with Roaring Flames. So very good, and we can wipe out wave after wave of enemy, getting back our shield very quickly. As for our abilities with this, I went with Towering Barricade, Strafe Lift. I actually went with a Bonk Hammer. You could go with Hammer Strike if you would want, but Throwing Hammer felt better to me. And then Incendiary Grenade, because it adds the most amount of Scorch, so we can get even more ignitions. Solar Fragments we got going on right here. We're going to be using them for the Ember of Ashes to apply more stacks of that Scorch, like I said, playing into the helmet as well as our grenade, trying to get as much of that ignition and scorch that we can. Ember of Char, our ignitions spread scorch to affected targets, so we can chain a bunch of those explosions together, which will help us to again wipe out wave after wave of enemy with this build. Ember of Eruption, our ignitions have increased area of effect, so they will spread even more scorch, which is even added up by our Ember of Ashes. We're going to create a bunch of sunspots, which is going to help us to get back our abilities again, stacking up damage with all that, so a little internal feedback loop. And then again, even more into that, defeating those scorched targets is going to give us our shield back. So in turn, with what it had with Khepri's Horn on getting those solar defeats, giving back our barricade, everything that we defeat with Scorch on this build is also going to give back our barricades. So the internal feedback loop of the build itself is pretty disgusting, with basically just throwing down your shield, getting a bunch of defeats with that Scorch. You can use your grenade, Bonk Hammer, everything like that, stand in your sunspots. You're going to get back these shields and your grenade very quickly, and even your hammer if you do happen to throw it off the map, something like that. Moving on to our mods as well as our stats that I built this out to. Obviously, we want 100 resilience so we can stay alive as well as get back our shield as fast as possible. For me, I went with discipline at 100 on this as well, so we could get that incandescent grenade to go off as much as possible. Recovery, you could go at whatever you want. I wanted to go as high as I possibly could. Could stack this out to 100 if I really wanted, but I chose to stack it up a little bit different by throwing on one of my strength mods down there so I could fit more on the mods with Dynamo. Using that class ability near targets is going to give us our super, so we can get back our Hammer of Soul, Strand Siphon, as well as Harmonic Siphon to create a bunch of orbs of power for us. Bolstering Detonation, Focusing Strike, Momentum Transfer, so we can get back our melee when we do damage with our grenade, and then Focusing Strike. Bolstering is going to give us back our class ability, so another way for us to just farm class ability energy with this by Khepri's Horn, getting us back our barricade with Solar Final Blows, as well as everything inside of our arms. Totally up to you, whatever content you're going into for your chest piece. Resistance wise, you could go with Concussive Dampener, stuff like that, Sniper Dampener, up to you. Like I said, content always kind of what bases that off of. For my boots right here, we're going to go with Absolution, restoration as well as recuperation to get back some health when we pick up orbs of power, to get back our abilities, and same kind of thing here. This is all our abilities and then our least charged ability. Last but certainly not least, on our class ability right here, we're going to use our finisher to again give us back our class ability. It does consume 3 stacks or more of that armor charge, but with everything that we're going to be creating orbs wise, very easy to do. Also got Reaper to help us to create more orbs of power with powerful attraction. So every time we throw down that barricade that we're going to be using, like I said, constantly with all the regen that we're getting on this build via everything I've talked about so far with our exotic, our subclass, as well as our mods on our arm piece right here, is going to be super, super disgusting as well with this. So we can just continuously farm those waves of enemies, get a bunch of ignitions going on, and destroy whatever enemy is coming your way. As for weapons that I threw on this build, for Overload, I went with the Avalanche right here. We got Subsistence Incandescent, just what I threw on. I should actually probably throw on the other origin trait because this is just for Dawning Surprise, but not a bad Avalanche. Really anything that has Scorch or a solar weapon in general for your heavy is what I went with. For me, I went with Vex Mythoclast because this thing is pretty disgusting when you put it in its overcharged mode. You can do some pretty crazy damage with the buff that it got to champions, bosses like that. So threw this on, plus it is also our unstoppable weapon with fusion rifles and is even better because of something on our tablet of Ruin down there. And then I went with the Unsworn, which is a new trace rifle strand in our kinetic slot that has that detonator beam on it with the subjugation origin trait. This is from our new Sunder Doctrine dungeon. That is a mouthful for an ADHD boy like me, but that detonating beam creates some explosions around the target. We're going to have unraveling with this because of our artifact as well, and then we can also exhaust targets, which is pretty cool because they will do a lot less damage on us and we can stay alive in that end game even more. Last but certainly not least, like I said, our tablet of Ruin right here. We're going to use that unstoppable fusion, overload machine gun, like I said, deep alchemy to help with our trace rifle with that subjugant origin trait, gaining stability and reload. Also unraveling orbs, like I said, strand weapons. When we pick up those orbs or tangles, it's going to give us some nice unraveling, so that can also stun our barrier champions as well when we pick that up. So just a little extra to the build. Hold the line when we are surrounded. Machine guns gain reload as well as stability, plus final blows will heal us. So another way on top of everything else that we have to give us some heals, which is pretty disgusting in my personal opinion, with that survivability that we got, recuperation on our boots, sunspots, etc. Now we also got King's Vestige. Defeating a powerful Taken loads our weapon with Taken energy. The next shot shoots these 3 trackers at them. Pretty good for doing a little bit of extra damage. Plus we're going to have those exhausted targets because of our subjugation trait that we got on our trace rifle. Disruptor Spike improves the effects of that exhaust and sever, lowering the target's damage output even further. So another way that we're going to be tanky and unstoppable as a Titan here. Horde Shuffle, defeating those unravel targets with a weapon. Spawn threadlings every so often. We're going to have that unraveling from the orbs down there. We're going to go with a Dreadful Finish actually on this, so we can get a bunch of special ammo for our trace rifle, just continuing the internal feedback loops of this build and the artifact itself. And then that particle reconstruction, like I said, with our Vex Mythoclast is going to absolutely melt because of this, making it even better. That also includes when it's in its firing mode, doing something like that on a boss champion, mini boss, stuff like that. Pretty disgusting. And then last but not least, I think for me, I'm gonna go with either this elemental supercharger, so those exhausted severed targets is gonna give us a good little amount of super energy, or that heavy ordnance, so when we are dealing sustained damage with our machine gun, we're gonna get even more damage resistance, and our grenade and melee are gonna come back. So up to you between these two, but overall this build pretty disgusting. Khepri's is feeling really nice, especially on this solar side. You could throw on a couple other options if you wanted, like Ember of Mercy or something like that, so you can get more restoration healing, but we're already getting a bunch of that with our sunspots that go on. With our bonk hammer is going to give us cure. With the sunspots, we're getting restoration. On top of that, we're going to have all the damage resistance from the sever and the exhaust that we're getting from the unsworn trace rifle on top of everything that is additional with the artifact. It's a pretty disgusting little build. Very fun, taking it through dungeon, taking it through solo stuff pretty easily. Nothing too high of a skill ceiling wise like with this build. All you really got to do is scorch enemies, throw your grenade, throw down your barricade, and it basically just keeps on refunding itself. Go stand in your sunspots, go throw your bonk hammer around, create even more sunspots. It's just a perfect little build, especially going through the nether, stuff like that. Feels pretty good in my personal opinion. So thank you guys again for always coming back to the channel. Means a lot to me, means a lot to the channel. Don't be afraid to like and subscribe if you haven't. Hit that bell as well. Join the Discord. We're going to be doing some giveaways soon here on the channel with a little monitor, so be on the lookout for that and everything. But again, appreciate you guys. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.